Good morning from Mooresville, North Carolina. For those of you here in the paddock today and for those of you tuning in live all around the world, it has been a fantastic weekend of racing to this point. First and foremost here as we get set to get underway, my name's Xander Clemens. Alongside me is Caleb Vieska as the first of the morning warm-up sessions is underway with the Micro Swifts, and as you can see with Lawrence Perriman going a little wide, we got a lot more moisture overnight for the second day in a row. This warm-up session is basically a track drying session as there is standing water all across the circuit, and on top of that, on the natural racing line, it is still pretty damp as well. It's dry enough for dry tires, but that doesn't mean that it's not tricky.
Yeah, correct. So good morning to all of our viewers who are tuning in bright and early this morning. Had the pleasure to walk the track this morning here today with a couple of our drivers here in the paddock, and just walking around and seeing what they were gonna say about this racetrack, and most of the KA senior drivers as well, just unsure if they should waste the session and go out there on the racetrack in the morning warm because of how damp the racetrack is. You see already a lot of wet patches here on the racetrack, especially the runoff on exit of turn number 3. So right on the racing line, as you see Brody Stoffel go through Minnesota Racing USA machine, very, very slick conditions. Sorry, that's Zane Burgess there. And you see how difficult it is to really tiptoe your way around this racetrack. So definitely, like Xander mentioned, it's going to be a track drying session all morning long. But by the time we get underway with racing, it'll definitely dry up. And I mean, a big storm hit us yesterday, right? We were leaving the paddock, and we were just 2 minutes late because by the time we walked out of the doors here, the rain started to pelt down. So it was definitely something, Xander.
Yeah, it was a very, very nasty evening there, but luckily a lot of that has moved through the area, and we are expecting a very nice race day here as here's a look at a little message taped on the Micron saying no break there. Obviously, you're going to need to use them right now with how damp the racetrack is. There's that wet patch at turn number 2 a little bit. Turn 3 has been a trouble spot. There you can see Zane Burgess. He was the only driver there just to go to the runoff. That runoff paint has a lot, but more than anything, it's the weeping of the racetrack, or I guess you'd call it weepers, however you want to call the slope down in turn number 4. Correct. There's 2 major drainage points down in the infield of the bowl, and across the racetrack the water flows to clear off from the outside. And that is going to stay probably through the B main for KA Junior, and I wouldn't be surprised for these micro drivers to be there as well. The warm-up sessions are probably going to clear off that inside groove, but just like we saw in the first round of heat races yesterday, that second outside groove is not going to get where the water, dried up with the water being pushed off until we get some racing going in where we're naturally going side by side in that corner. Because yes, sometimes here you'll see a pass like this with Zane on Enzo De Janeiro right there where the driver will hang a little bit on the outside. But look at the spray for them there in turn number 3. But down in turn 4, they're going to let each other go most of the time and back out because there's just no room, or you're going to really have to tiptoe. So luckily the micros are going 2 and 3 wide down at turn 4, and that's going to obviously clear the water off entirely. But you've got 30 carts on average going through on the inside lane, and only about 5 carts probably on average going on the outside getting past in turn number 4. So it's going to take a lot longer to get the water off of the second and third grooves in the bowl versus the standard racing line. And that's also, again, the fact that the track drains in different ways, that last 10% of the drying process makes it so tricky, because right here, this looks like a perfectly dry racetrack. There might be a little bit of water in the divots on the outside curbing and runoff, but besides that, the turn 11 complex, turn 9, turn 8, even the infield turn 6, and then through turn 1, that's all fine. You can use almost your normal markers, but in the bowl corner, in turn number 3, that's going to be the last part to dry. And you can see even still on the cool-down lap, drivers are experimenting with the grip, and we're going a little bit over the edge, like Nolan Carney right there on the U-Race Paralyn, getting a little sideways down at turn number 4. That probably will not be the last spin that we see here this morning, Caleb.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, all these drivers just tiptoeing their way around the racetrack, and this Micro Swift class, obviously lap time's not too relevant, so the timing on your left just shows it by position. But here at the moment, Easton Kubinski was the driver who went quickest in morning warm-up, a 58.218. So it wasn't too bad here this morning, and you see already some drivers maybe needing to use the brakes here. So turns 1 plus 4 plus 9. As we get some pickup getting set to go underway, we'll take the chance to take our first commercial break of the day.
So you finally want to get behind the wheel, huh?
Yeah, I've been shooting for 3 years and I've never got to drive.
Well, you're going to need some more gear than just your helmet. Why don't you go to shopakr.com. They got their inventory online and they'll ship it the same day if you order before 5:30 p.m. Eastern.
They got shoes,
Yep.
gloves,
Yep.
rib protectors.
Got those too.
Can they make me go fast?
No.
Here at Acceleration Kart Racing, we've got everything you need to get on track. What happens next, well, that's on you. Check us out online at shopakr.com.
Here at MPG Motorsports, our main goal is to provide the best pathway into professional motorsports for our entire team, drivers and mechanics alike. We're based out of Whiteland Raceway Park in Indiana. For more information, contact us at chase@mpg-motorsports.com.
Studies show that even the best current generation of simulators only convince 50% of the human brain that they are real. Here at Simcraft, that just isn't realistic enough. Developed to offer the most realistic karting sim experience in the world, all testing has shown that the physics engine used in Simcraft's Grid 1 model convinces 90% of the human brain that you are actually on track. Now that is the real deal.
Ryan Norberg is an internationally recognized karting professional, industry influencer, and multi-time national karting champion. Supported by Rotax Power, he has created a world-class karting experience, and is now dedicated to passing on his knowledge to a new generation. With 8 national championships, Supernats victories, and numerous wins in different categories, drivers of all ages are welcome to join and partake in this unique experience. The Norberg Karting Academy offers more than just standard coaching. It provides an experience where you will learn pro-level tools to progress through your karting career. All Academy guests will enjoy a private hospitality suite which overlooks the karting circuit. Welcome to the Norberg Karting Academy, where champions are made. For information about 2024 bookings, email norbergkarting@gmail.com.
Welcome back here to Trackhouse Motorplex, and we're on to the first of the 2 KA100 Junior warm-up groups. And let's see here in the trouble spot that has been turn number 4. Watch them all go in deep, and so far a little better success rate than the micros. And of course that's only going to get better as the sessions wear on, but the microslift drivers are about 5 seconds off their best lap time. This is also some of the best conditions to really develop a driver's natural seat-of-the-pants feel. There's only a handful of tracks I can think of that have this kind of situation when they dry, where it's one specific corner that still is a little bit damp. At Speed Sports Racing Park, it's turn 1 at the end of the front straightaway. It grades across, so going into the S's, you hit the water, but then the rest of the track could be dry. Here, it's that runoff at turn 3 and then down the banking in turn 4. At Dallas Karting Complex, it's the last turn. And at Homestead, at AMR Motorplex, it's the carousel. But obviously, they got through on the outlap. They did not get through here in the second time by for all of the field. Braden Zerves, one of the Felber brothers going around, and the 872 Sodi machine has gone around as well. Now, this is the first group of 2, and I think there's, for the warm-up sessions, I don't know if this was split off of happy hour or not. Obviously, there's some major contenders in this group, like Diego Ardiles, Carter McMurray, Turner Brown, Max Christio, who was fast yesterday, Forrest Adams. But this is only, again, the first of the 2. They're going out of turn 8 is the 846 Ryan Prairie Motorsport machine. And you also have to be careful to not cook the clutch if you do get stuck in the grass at any point and roast that thing where you're trying to spin it, but you're not getting any traction. You will burn those clutch pads off real fast. Around for Marco Romero, into the wall hard for the 870 RPG Cosmic. Big contact down in turn number 4.
Cole
Medeiros, who had a pretty stout quali effort yesterday and was hovering the top 10 in all of his heats. Romero going around, and it's one thing to be able to tiptoe through this section kind of, just by yourself, but you're on the limit on your own, making it through the corner. Then when you see someone spin in front of you, you hit the brakes harder. Then, of course, that might lock the rear axle up and make it want to spin, so then you get off the brakes. And so you're either getting off the brakes and hitting the wall or locking the brakes up and spinning and potentially losing control and going into that driver as well. But, again, keep an eye on those lap times there on the left-hand side of the screen. There's going to be some big deltas for the drivers that are able to figure it out and those that are not. And it's going to be dynamically changing lap by lap. We're in the 54-second bracket right now. That's 5 seconds off what the KA Juniors did in yesterday's heats, qualifying in the practices that were dry on Friday. But again, it's only wet in turn 3 in the runoff, so they have to keep it a little bit tighter and stay inside the curving there, and then through the bowl at turn number 4. Everywhere else, well, there's a little bit of the curbs that are still holding some water, but you don't want to go wet tires. You would think at a 5-second delta that it'd be borderline, but no, definitely slicks and definitely dry for 90% of the racetrack. But you are really asking a lot of your driver here to try and tiptoe their way through the bowl. We're already seeing the times come down as Diego Ardiles and Turner Brown figure it out even more. They've got 7/10 on the field. They just dropped a whole second last time by.
Yeah, they just dropped a whole second. Here, Carter McMurray, one of the drivers who was really quick yesterday, and we saw some of the moves that he made yesterday around the outside a couple of times. Definitely not going to happen in this morning warm-up. That outside groove, like you said earlier, still very, very damp. But looking ahead today at our main event for this KA 100 Junior class, 47 have automatically transferred into the main event here. Chico Brown is the driver who's going to start on the pole position. He's out on the track right now with teammate Diego Ardiles. It's going to be an RPG lockout of that front row. So 47 drivers total in the main event with a final B, which is going to be the last chance qualifier for these KA 100 juniors as well, where some heavy hitters have found themselves going into later today.
Talking about some more of the drivers that have joined that front contingent. Nico Sarfati had a day where he was knocking on the door of some big finishes in the heats yesterday. Some very impressive runs out of that black and white GFC that we're following right now through turn 4. Sarfati's a little further down the order right now, outside the top 10. He is currently 17th at about a second and a half off of the pace of Turner Brown, who just dropped into the 52-second bracket. So the times are getting better. That's also, again, both a mix of the tires building heat, the water slowly getting pushed off of the racing line in turn number 4, and more than anything, the junior drivers figuring out the best way to get through that section. But this is almost like a rallycross layout right now, where you go from different conditions. You know, rallycross is all about going from the dirt or the sand to the asphalt and back and forth, and that's kind of what we've got. So a bit of an homage to a completely almost unrelated racing discipline right now for these junior drivers, but super entertaining for us to watch because it just has cycled the names completely. And speaking of local knowledge, how about Forrest Adams, third in the group there with a good lap at the end, the BJR MDR driver right up behind the two of the best junior drivers we have seen this year. Turner Brown and Diego Ardiles have multiple wins already on the season, so that experience that they have accrued over the last few years paying off here in warm-up. They're quickest as we've got problems again for the 872.
That's the second time. And
is that Remy Andratos or Luke Tall maybe? That's one of the Sodi Racing USA drivers off.
That's Arthur Barber.
Arthur Barbe. Oh, and Arthur Barbe, he had a nasty crash yesterday in the middle of the heat races. So obviously they were able to get that kart fixed up, but sadly it is going to be a little bit dirty when it comes into the pit lane here, getting off in the grass, still trying to get back onto the circuit and clear things off. So here's a look at how the first group went. The second group will merge on in, so you'll still see the rest of the times, and probably a lot of that second group go even quicker by the time they get to laps 3 and 4. Here's down to the rest of the leaderboard. And with more than 60 drivers in KA Junior, they are the only class of the 7 that will have not all of their drivers, sadly, make it to the main event later on today. They will have a last chance qualifier later on this morning. 47 of the 60-plus have qualified through to the main event. But the fences are lined here for warm-up, probably even more than normal. There's a look down at some of the RPG contingent like Ryan Norberg, Hayden Jones, team manager Joni Chexera, all keeping an eye on the conditions before they go out for their warm-up session, and plenty more drivers you can see with suits on, all just trying to get a read on what the track is looking like. There's you and Jeffrey from CRG Nordam as well looking on. There are plenty of eyes on these warm-up sessions trying to figure out again, the best way around, what setup to run. Do you want to adjust anything? Because that's also the big question here. This is the last test session you have before the race day, and we touched on it briefly yesterday afternoon, anticipating the wet weather overnight, that a lot of times in these warm-up sessions that are followed by the very next session, the official one being a new tire run, in this case the main event, new tires. There's Josh Oates and Michael Geringer from the Oates Driver Development Camp keeping an eye on things as well. Is you may put a new set of tires on in the warm-up to test how the go-kart will react on new tires, but you're not going to learn anything right now.
Correct.
What you might learn, though, is a gear change because, again, while, yes, you are having to go slower in turn number 4, you do get pretty close to where you need to be speed-wise down the front stretch because turn 11 is dry and turn 1 is dry. So if you're trying to go out in a group and engage a gear change, you can get a read there. Setup change, chassis adjustments. You're not really going to learn all too much because not only will the back section dry, but the whole track is just going to get a lot faster by the time they go back out for the main event later today. But here's the front of our second group to go out. Sebastian Garzon, we chatted with him a little bit yesterday. He said the go-kart's been pretty good for him. He's just continuing to work on his driver development, trying to make less and less mistakes underneath the tutelage of the storied career and team owner of Fabio Orsolon. And looking on there, a couple of mini Swift drivers here. Luke Gilio, Parker Ives, and Ashton Woon all keeping a tab on the KA Juniors. They're going to go out here in about 2 more sessions, 3 more, with 2 more KA senior sessions to follow this junior group. So let's see, turn 4. Oh, Max Weiland getting tagged around right there. He was making it through nicely, but then just got a little bit of help. And again, they're on the limit going through turn number 4. So any extra adjustment, any bit of contact is probably going to result in some spins in the warm-up. Whereas when the track is normally dry, you can have a little bit of contact, a little bit of a hiccup, and still have more than enough grip to make it through the turn.
Yeah, and I mean, this morning, right, doing that track walk, a lot of drivers often do the track walk because yesterday in the morning warm-up, very few drivers actually went out there and walked the track. So whenever we got to the KA Senior warm-up, all the drivers, assuming the track is dry, just absolutely flying off the racetrack at the runoff of turn 3. So that's why it's important to have a track walk. And this morning, I did one yesterday, did one this morning as well, and the track was absolutely packed with all the drivers trying to learn. They knew the rain came in, and they really need that so they can learn how to tiptoe around this racetrack early. They see what's wet, they see what's dry, they see where they can push, they see where they can't, and then that's when you start thinking about, do I want to throw on a sticker set of tires for this morning warm-up, or am I just going to waste a set of tires because the track is still pretty damp and I'm not going to learn much. One of those drivers being Oliver Calvo, who I saw out there on the racetrack, spoke to him a little bit. He was wanting to try something a little different in this morning warm-up, but said that he couldn't because it wasn't going to give him any gauge because of how different the track was at the end of the day yesterday compared to this morning.
Yeah, and that's something that's just a good routine that you'll see, everyone does at the beginning of the weekend, but to do it every single day, you're always just looking for any changes in the track. In a dry situation, it's still beneficial to go just because you want to see how the rubber buildup is, and if you need to adjust your line. If there's a lot of grip down in a certain corner, not only can you take it faster, you might need to turn in a little bit earlier to get underneath the grip, whereas when there is a lot of rubber down and you take a wide arc and you cross that rubber, cross that grip line, it's going to kind of take the kart straight instead of staying on your arc. It'll be hard to cross over, so you want to get almost underneath it like a cushion in dirt racing. Here is Peyton Westcott, the young lady from California, has had a very busy start to her 2024 season, racing both stateside here in a number of national events with Rawlson Performance Group. And oh man, there is a lot of carnage right there in turn number 9. It is a yard sale out there in the grass. There's about 7 go-karts that all went too wide there. I thought that corner was a little bit drier, but obviously the grass is not, and look at all the smoke billowing off. It's one thing to come out of the left side of the cart, that's off the exhaust pipe, but if you see smoke billowing from the right side where the engine is, that's the clutch starting to burn up. So a lot of drivers off. Luca Popescu there, Luca Brancati. We talked about how Arthur Barbe had a massive crash yesterday. Brancati was the other driver involved with heavy damage to his Ryan Perry Motorsport Tony kart. He's able to continue, get back on the racetrack, but Luca Brancati and Peyton Westcott were 2 of the fastest in happy hour, but then in qualifying faded a little bit further down the grid and then didn't have the best of luck through the heat races. Isaac Malkut there on screen, the lone PSL Bureau Art here this weekend competing, along with Max Weiland, both of them right around each other here in turn number 8 and headed to turn number 9, and it looks like maybe there's a little wet patch going across the track just a bit, coming out of turn 8, right as they turn left to go into turn number 9, and I think that might have been why those guys and girls were spinning off the racetrack, is as you were starting to turn the wheel to the left and then get on the brakes and you see someone spin in front of you, you hit the brakes harder, and you're already having the motion and momentum going to the left-hand side, and it just loops the kart around to the opposite way the track goes. Yeah, correct.
So all these drivers still pretty much, just learning session on the racetrack, get themselves warmed up, knock out whatever little gremlin is still in that kart, making sure everything stays on. But for all these drivers, nobody in this group really making any big impressions on Diego Ardiles and Turner Brown, who are top of the timing charts here. Forrest Adams is 3rd, Fisher 4th, so not too much movement. Garzone, the only driver really in this first group who has worked his way into the top 5 so far, but nobody really making any impressions, and Nathan Dupuis just did actually up into the top 6, so not too bad, but everybody's still tiptoeing around. Enzo Vidmontien inside the top 10 here in this morning warm-up session, but again, just still learning the racetrack, still just kind of warming themselves up mentally and physically here this morning. So a little bit of time left in this warm-up session, but with, I believe, one more lap around the racetrack for all these drivers here.
Big lap out of Travis Pettit. He just populated up to 2nd, nips Diego Ardiles' time, so that was a good one for the Race Lab TV driver. There he is, coming into turn number 4 in the 8:28. He's able to now rip the bottom side, and I will say, having driven the lime green TBE karts a couple of times this year, those do have a lot of built-in grip. For myself, when we have a lot of grip down, that's been my struggle typically, is getting some grip dialed out of the chassis. But in a session like this, where you're struggling for grip, I'm not surprised at all to see those karts go towards the top. I'm waiting to see where Ty Fisher may populate towards the top of the timesheets as well. But a good lap for Travis Pettit. Great lap for Sebastian Garzone and Juan Jose Paramo as they go to 1st and 3rd. There's a big lap at the end for Enzo Vidmontien. No surprise there. Experienced drivers towards the top. Pettit, still another good lap at the end. He'll go to 4th here at the Checkers. And we'll get down to within 3 seconds of where they were yesterday at a 52.4. Still a good ways off of the timesheet. So all of the drivers there, while you see some gaps in the top 10, that was the drivers that had run this session versus the ones that were in the session before as the leaderboard was updating. But Enzo Vidmontien, Sebastian Garzone quickest at the end of the session. And to see also the Orsolone Racing drivers, again, that team based out of Miami, Florida, and spending a lot of their time doing driver training and testing down at Homestead, well, that also is going to pay off because you get a lot more rain down in sunny South Florida. It's not always sunny, and the rain comes in quick and fast, and that AMR Motorplex track is one of the best ones to try and plan a test day at because you're probably going to get both dry and wet running conditions. And another driver who excels in those is Luke Welcome on that Rocket Racing Company Kart Republic. So keep an eye on the 974. He won Heat 3 yesterday, and he said it mean the world to him to try and get a national win away from his home racetrack. It would be another step towards his career's progression. And as a Heat 3 yesterday adds on to the confidence for Luke, hopefully he can parlay that into a major result here today. But KA Junior wrapped up with a 52.4 as the best time. Again, 3 seconds off the high 49s they were in yesterday, and the low 49s that were quick for the KA Seniors we're probably going to see down in maybe the 51s, but I don't know if you'll see a lot faster. They obviously do have a little more horsepower, a little more weight, which is actually going to help them in the wet section of the racetrack. But can they right the wrongs of yesterday? Because this was the class that got a little bit wild going through turn number 3. Let's keep an eye on it as they go down the back straightaway here for the first time. And that section, as more drivers are going wide there, you see this is a much more conservative outlap for the KA Seniors. A lot of them learning from their mistakes yesterday morning.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of drivers are trying to take turn 3 flat out, first lap out, and you know that never ends well here. But track is drying up. Whenever you saw that second group of K100 Junior go a little quicker than that first group, so you see the track continuing to improve bit by bit. These drivers are even going to go faster. The second group is going to go faster, obviously, the more and more the track dries up, but still just tiptoeing their way around and again, just warming up here at the moment. So half of this group here, no LCQ for this K100 Senior class, if I'm not mistaken. So all 52 drivers getting set to go green here today, and that's going to be a crazy one later on today, right? 52 drivers. I think the most drivers that we've seen take the green flag at the US PKS, United States Pro Kart Series, and K100 Senior.
At least this year for sure. We've seen a couple over the years of majors, sometimes as many as 60 karts on the racetrack, and that's a lot to keep an eye on. Now, as they go through turn 4, if we can hold right here on this wet patch, the second of the two, take a look at this, folks, here right now. You can see already, just from the drivers running the bottom and getting down to the normal line, that inside groove already has gotten a good bit drier than the outside. You still see some standing water all the way on the outside of the racetrack. This shot also shows you all of the rubber marbles, all those small dark pieces on the outside runoff. That is still a little harder to see, but they're going to be up on the third and fourth and the outside grooves there. And you get any of those on the tires, it's like driving through sand or grass, basically. You've got no grip when you go that far wide. So the warm-up session, the first two, the first of the KA groups and the micro group, kind of moved some of those marbles to the outside edge because they were already running the wider line. But now we're starting to see the regular line get a little bit closer down to the bottom as there's Jesus Vasquez Jr. rip into the outside edge of where it is dry with a little wider arc. Finnegan Bailiff quickest off the rip, but we're going to follow Aiden Rudolph here down the back straightaway on that CRG entry. Aiden had quite an interesting day yesterday. He was in the mix of things, but finally got a very calm end to his day with a good Heat 3 result. He's still going to be starting safely in the main event and in the hunt. And we've seen this driver obviously run up front quite a bit here in 2024. And on his third year in the senior ranks, he has quickly become very experienced. And that's, I think, one of the other fun parts of getting to watch drivers move through the senior categories. You see it a bit in junior, but most of the time, the superstars that run towards the front that we have a lot of camera time on as they're battling for wins, they only end up spending maybe 2 seasons, sometimes 3. So, you know, they just get to the front, but that extra bit of progression you get of running in senior, you see the drivers, you know, mentally mature from 15 to 18, 19 years old. In the case Finnegan Bailiff, 21 years old. that their style changes. You know, Aiden Rudolph, you know him very well as well, Caleb, as I do. And he's even admitted that he is such a different driver than when he first burst onto the scene in 2022. And I think we saw a lot of that yesterday, where he was making controlled aggression moves, but realistically, you know, he was able to take what the race would give him and didn't end up having any crashes, didn't have any DNFs on the day. And that's how, you see where they're thinking more, that they're going through the motions, they're making mistakes and then learning from them over the years to go, hey, you know what, it is a heat race and it's an average that puts my starting spot for the main. Yes, championship points are awarded in all of the official sessions from qualifying forward, but survive the heats, finish the heats, and you're going to start better just by other drivers naturally having attrition, whether it's mechanical breakdowns or getting involved in crashes. You don't need to win every session. You just need to win the last one on the weekend and keep yourself with a good starting spot for that last one. So Colin Lloyd as well, he knows that. He's also now entering, I believe, either his second or third, I believe his third season in the senior categories. This year, a full season with the Inter-MS Kart Republic group. It was a cool story for him with the breakout win that he had last year in Salt Lake City, Utah with Speed Concepts Racing. Got him to run a few more races on the year because of it. And then this year, he is the leading man in the KA 100 senior ranks for Inter-MS. And while Houston was a bit of a downbeat, just barely surviving through to make the final, he's had a much better weekend here in North Carolina.
Yeah, not too bad of a weekend this time out for Colin Lloyd. Obviously, in the first round, found himself in the 30s, 40s, on what was an absolutely stacked KA 100 senior class with about 64 drivers out there that weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And Colin Lloyd was was further back in the pack. So, struggled all weekend with chassis issues and whatever it may have been. Went to one of Alessandro Di Tullio's backup chassis and was able to get going a little bit quicker, but just a little too late that time out for Colin Lloyd. But this weekend looks pretty good. Getting in the mix, into the top 10. Been a top 15 driver all weekend long as well, so not too bad for Colin Lloyd. And then Jesus Vasquez Jr., one of the drivers that we've seen pretty often this year over in our home state of Texas, driving at the Texas Racing Series, and here this weekend for a full United States Pro Kart Series campaign, and doing a great job so far, and working his way into the top 15 as well for that GFC driver.
Lloyd right now is second, and he did that lap while passing Jesus Vasquez Jr. So as we follow him around to turn number 9 and up to hill to turn number 11, that pink and chrome Inter-MS Kart Republic probably going to go towards the top. Christian Miles is quickest here. Let's see if Lloyd goes any better on his last lap. Finn Bailiff stays 4th. Lloyd does not improve on the final time by the loop, so he'll stay 2nd. Alexander Gonzalez with an impressive warm-up session. He's 3rd on that Nash Motorsports EOS kart and was right around probably 8th to 12th in the heat races. And this is a leap forward on the time charts and on the scoreboard for him. Aiden Rudolph, good lap there at the end on the CRG. He goes to 6th. Vasquez Jr., we saw him struggling for grip on the GFC a little bit here in the warm-up session, but that's a good sign. If you're loose in the warm-up, if you're suffering from a bit of oversteer, the track will take some more grip as the day goes on. As the sun starts to warm the track up, it will come to you, and he'll be, I'm sure, plenty fast when we get out there. Now, that was interesting there as well, seeing those two names at the bottom of the boards, Anthony Rivera, and more importantly, Cameron Weinberg, or more notably, I should say. Weinberg, of course, one of the fastest throughout all 3 heat races yesterday. Got into it a little bit with A.J. Myers. Spoke with A.J. at the end of the day yesterday. Didn't get to catch up with Cameron, but A.J. said, you know what? After that aggressive move, as much as I was mad, Cameron came up to me, apologized for it, said, hey, I'm sorry, that was my bad. And A.J. said, yeah, well, okay, screw you, but we're good. that pissed me off, but it's okay. We can settle the score here, 1-1. You made a mistake, 1-0. You apologize, 1-1. We're even. And I think the veteran drivers in the senior class, like A.J. Myers, with plenty of years of experience, they respect that you're willing to go up, swallow your pride, talk to them, and own your mistakes. Because more often than not, we see drivers kind of get into it on the racetrack and then not, hash it out in person in the scale line or in the paddock area afterwards. And then that kind of, frustration, it brews and it vents over into the next session and the following weekend sometimes. And so to see someone like Cameron Weinberg, who also, granted, he's not been active every single year of his senior career, but back racing again to take that, that step and own it. And again, say, you know what, that was my bad. I messed up. I made a bad decision. I apologize. And, I enjoy racing you, AJ, and I'd like to get a chance to race you clean here in the main event. And that's we say this phrase that, something we'd like to see. That's something that we really like to see, that, drivers are, hey, you know what, I respect you, and I enjoy racing clean, and I want to keep things clean when we go back out on the racetrack the next time out. So speaking of drivers hoping for a clean day, Ben Gaunt, what a scary, scary moment Ben had flipping over in turn number 11. He tagged the wall yesterday on the BJR MDR LN kart. You can see he doesn't even have numbers yet on the right side pod. They had to do a full rebuild overnight on that car. And Brandon Jarsacrack, Mike Doty, and the combination team, they've got 10 drivers here this weekend. It was a bit of a later night to get Ben tuned back up, but Ben was fast when the last time we saw him at Charlotte Motor Speedway. He had a lot of speed and just, seemed like no luck there. Had a mechanical issue at the beginning of one of the heat races. I think had some other attrition go out through the weekend, and we didn't get to see him towards the pointy end of the grid where his speed probably could have placed him in the main event. So hopefully he can rebound from that crash yesterday. I'm not sure if he's going to have to start from pretty deep or about midfield, but hopefully he can join the likes of his teammates at the front like James Overbeck and Paulie Massimino, who have had standout days through the heat races. One driver who I think more expected maybe to be even higher than he was in the heats is the one we're following right now. Jake Drew, the top qualifier from Houston, has been making strides, but he has not necessarily had outright, fastest on the racetrack speed in the hunt, in the top 10 in his heat races. But again, that's only, top 20 overall. So I'm sure he's probably still looking for a little more, and maybe same position as Oliver Calvo, where he maybe would have wanted to do a change in the warm-up, but wasn't able to because the track's not there. So either way, Jake Drew on the racetrack right now leading Eli Warren. We'll hear from more of our seniors, but let's hear from some of our juniors of what the track's like. How about Max Weiland? Max, we always enjoy talking to you down there. You got a big smile on your face, buddy. First and foremost, what's it like? Was it fun slipping and sliding there through turns 3 and 4?
Oh, yeah. It was fun just getting the car turned. Having a lot of fun, sliding it through there.
You had a little moment there at the start of the session, obviously, getting turned around, but that was just a little help from behind. Now let's talk about your weekend, man. You've had some really good speed, some good runs in the heat races in the KA Junior class. How do you feel about that main event coming up? Did you get to learn anything on the dry parts of the racetrack at least?
I learned a lot, where it's dry, where it's wet, and to use that in a race is going to be very important.
Now let's talk about X30 Junior. You're running both classes, I believe, this weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So what do we need to get going in the 125cc class?
I need a good start, and after that, I just need to get going. Pass a few drivers, and I'll be up there.
You feel the pace is pretty good on the go-kart then, at least? Any other changes or anything else you need out of it, or is it good? You just need to find a way to get it to the front.
I just need to find my way to the front. I'm happy with the setup. I just need to get my way up there, and I'll go racing then.
Now let's talk about the other part of the weekend that you get to have, watching the class on the racetrack with your mentor, AJ Myers. Having the ability to get to learn from someone like him over the last few years, I'm sure there's a lot of coaching on his end. We talked to him about you. How do you feel about AJ's performance this weekend?
He's doing great. I know in Heat 3 he got turned, but he's still starting P3 after getting in a wreck, and he's doing really fast, and he's helped me a lot. I just got to say thank you to him.
Well, can you bet any lunchman on AJ to go get it done today, get himself a win? You think he's got it in him?
Yeah, he's going to get it.
All right, Max here. We'll let you get back to getting ready for the main event later today, buddy. Good luck in both X30 Junior and KA Junior. Thanks for chatting with us. Now, let's go back here to the Magic Man himself, AJ Myers. As we heard from Max Weiland, even with the crash that took him down to the edge of the top 10 with Cameron Weinberg and him getting into it on that last heat race, like Max said, he's going to start third as we got problems further back. That's one of the Nash Motorsports drivers with a full 360. So AJ Myers, at least, though, yesterday, very, very good. His opening heat race was right in the mix in heat number 2 as well. He had been keeping a close tab on everybody else, but we asked him what it looked like on the racetrack was multi-car battles, and it was so hard to say what was the winning way to pick your way through the pack. And AJ's words were exactly that. He's like, yeah, it's so tough in those multi-car packs. It's a lot of luck, and you just don't know because you're playing off everyone around you. He's like, I don't even know, what the right way to play those groups are. I haven't figured out necessarily an all-situation winning strategy, but at least for AJ, the speed's there where he's got a chance to fight for it in a good starting spot, as that is more issues for the 960 Nash Motorsports entry on the outside of turn number 9. He went off there on the short shoot into turn 7 and 8.
Yeah,
Gavin Wardle, and he is stuck in the grass right now outside of 9. So Gavin Wardle already with one spin in the session. He's going to get a little help from the Trackhouse Motorplex corner marshal to push him back up and onto the circuit. And, that must have been a way off move there, hitting the wall as far as he must have went in turn number 9. So probably still had a lot of water, moisture, and dirt on the tires from going off the racetrack there at turn number 3 and spinning, and he must have spun again and hit the outside retaining wall. Here's a great look again at the entry to turn number 4. It's a wider arc going into the corner naturally, and especially when you're trying to really get down to the inside by the end of it to set you up for turn number 5 and get a launch into it. So you're seeing the middle of the racetrack, that initial part of the circuit drying, but keep our eye out for that B main and KA Junior, because they're probably going to run the bottom side down the backstretch on that first lap to defend, and they're going to hit a wet spot that still has a little standing water down on the inside curb. Now you look at the exit of the corner or the center half, and that is already, pretty much clear of moisture, at least any standing water. There's still a wetter patch, but a lot drier than the second groove in turn number 4. So we're going to see that slowly creep away. But in chatting with drivers and kind of getting a read on it, I think it's going to look like yesterday. The first race for Micro Swift, the first main event out, and for sure that KA Junior B main, it's going to be very treacherous if you get put on the outside in the bowl. And we've seen so many times that when the drivers line up, there's no hole to drop back into line. So you got to kind of hang on to the steering wheel and the pedals and do everything you can to not lose too much time or lose the kart altogether when you go through a wet patch like that. Let's see how the minis do as they start to go to the runoff in turn 3. And well, we're about halfway through them, and they haven't gone on the grass yet, but let's see if they can make it through. And oh no, around goes 1 right in front of us. 2 around. Valentino Santian and Callan Berghofer and the AKT Energy spinning around at the end of the back straightaway.
That's definitely your fault. You so jinxed those two drivers there halfway through, and then once you said that, they spun around. So blame Xander for that, you guys. But all these drivers working their way around here. Pretty well, only 2 around so far this morning, but in this Mini Swift class, it's been we had some good racing yesterday, right? You saw Parker Ives up there at the front, winning a couple, but in the end, in the last one, we saw Parker Stewart get up there and a couple of other drivers who also, not Parker Stewart, that's Micro Swift, sorry. But in this class, we had a lot of mixing up of the field, and this one, Ashton Woon as well got shuffled back, so it was pretty interesting to see yesterday, Xander.
Yeah, definitely that third heat was a big-time mix-up. The first 2 heats had more of a standard where the first few drivers kind of got a good start and broke away, but the last heat really opened things up and showed how many more drivers have the speed to run at the front and stay at the front. We're watching Alex Chandler and Benja Fernandez there, as looks like maybe Braden Wagner on the GFC going around in turn number 4 with a little spin. He'll get that going, but down into turn number 8 for these 3, Chandler, Fernandez, and then right at the back of it, Josh Bergman on the Trinity Karting Group, Kart Republic, at the tail of the 3. First lap in for Ashton Woon is a 1:03 3.57. These guys are in the high 50s for their lap times in the dry. And with less weight, they're going to struggle a little more in the damper parts of the circuit and the lack of experience. So you're going to see probably a very big delta of who can navigate the conditions here as we watch through turn number 1. All of them going through. Woon's all by himself out front. Then Aston Wyatt on that AR Academy Bureau Art. He had a rough go of it yesterday.
Yeah, and you see it there on the side pods already. All just kind of banged up for Aston Wyatt. We saw him go around during the first start of heat race number 3. Obviously, after the red flag got thrown out, he was able to retake his starting spot. And just been a slow weekend so far for the Huntsville native so far, but trying to work his way up to the front here. as they get set to go green. 40 drivers total in this Mini Swift class, where Parker Ives is the driver starting on the pole position alongside Ashton Woon. The driver on your screen here, Aston Wyatt, finds himself further back in the field with some work to do, just in the 20s here, getting set to go green later on today. But for a lot of drivers as well, right? The likes of Pasha Ali, Liam Nachawati, and others who we're used to seeing at the front during a couple of races, I've just been struggling this weekend. Nico Orbezo as well as Alex Chandler, just some drivers struggling. Marco Salmon as well, just outside of the top 10, but I'm pretty sure they'll be there in no time.
Yeah, Ashton Woon was quickest. He's now been pushed back, 55.48 for Cade Wolf. We're getting closer and closer to a fast racetrack once again, as the Super Tune Paralyn has now been pushed all the way outside of the top 10. So Woon still by himself. But with the track still damp down at turn number 4, the toe making maybe a little difference, not as much as normal. Out of 11, let's see if he goes any better here this time across the loop for the 195. At the line, Ashton Woon will go to the top, 54.849. Big jump there. And then Fernandez will do the same. He'll jump up. Vega will jump up. Parker Ives, they're all going to shuffle. And John McClellan, Troy Ferguson, Marco Sammet with a big lap here on lap number 5. So a 54.48 for Marco. A 10th up on John McClellan. Marco Sammet yesterday, one of the other drivers that we saw starting to get up into the mix of it by the end of Saturday. And it was frustrating, I think, for the Marco Sammet camp based on how qualifying went, because they were very fast in happy hour and through the practice sessions, and then ended up qualifying outside the top 10, I believe. So he's got some work to do still, making up for that poor qualifying effort that put him back down in the middle of the pack for the heat races and having to fight his way through it. But the nice part is unlike the heats where qualifying and where you start matters a whole lot more, the main events are so long here for the US Pro Kart Series on Sunday. It's just a warm-up and then the final to give us more laps in that main and allow you to make up for starting further back in the grid. It adds obviously a little bit of tire degradation, but it also really gives the chance for the drivers to think out there. The first few laps are kind of all instinct and just go. But once you get to lap 3, lap 4, you can start to think again, settle in, and decide when to pick your moves to try and hunt down the pack in front of you, or if you're in the leaders, try to pull away. As you've got a little spinner again, that's the 106 going for a wild ride in the infield of turn number 4. We've got a few more. Nico Orbezo, the 143 Kart Republic, might have been Isaac Payne going around over there, just coming into the bull corner. Orbezo down in 20th.
Robert Lash.
Lash going around there in the end of the backstretch. Here's Sammet leading the group up the hill. I think that's Jensen Michelke behind him in the 156. Let's see what Sammet does this time. A little bit of traffic for him. Didn't end up going too quick at the end. Bowen Green fastest in the Timmy Tech Comp Kart. 54.043. Bashi Jimenez with a good lap for 2 Benix inside the top 5, with Royce Vega joining him right there in 3rd. Lorenco Varela 4th. John McClellan 5th. Cade Wolf 6th. Enzo De Janeiro 7th. Josh Bergman 8th. Parker Ives down in 9th. Troy Ferguson 10th, but a 3/10 spread for the top 9, 2/10 for the top 8. That's starting to look like what we looked at yesterday lap time-wise, where everybody was so close here at Trackhouse Motorplex.
Yeah, so lap time starting to get a little bit quicker here as the track continues to dry up. And you saw there inside of turn number 4, that groove just getting a little bigger and a little bigger every time we get more and more karts out there on the racetrack. 40 drivers total in this Mini Swift class on what's been action-packed all weekend long, but it's really provided some great racing here this weekend, Xander.
Well, the Mini Swift's in. Now the X30 Juniors will go, just like what we heard from Max Weiland. He'll be on the racetrack here amongst the 30-plus. Here's a look at the lineup here, folks. Warm-ups underway right now, free to watch. Your KC Premium membership brings you to the main events. There is a lunch break in the middle of the day, of course, right at the beginning of the mains as well. We'll have that last chance qualifier for K100 Junior, and then go into the Micro Swift main, I believe, almost right after. Short break in the middle of the day, and then it's capped off with that X30 Pro Senior main event where Austin Garrison and Joe Turney will lead us to green. They split the heat races, 2 going to Austin Garrison, the last one to Joe Turney. But if that last heat was just a little bit longer, we were in for a fight. Garrison was tracking him down in the closing laps, just came up a couple tenths short. at the checkers. So here we go again. X30 Junior now as we enter the halfway mark in the warm-up sessions. Jackson Wolney in the 703 there on the outside of David Ramirez's 737 RPG Cosmic. Jackson Wolney in both of his junior categories had some work to do to climb forward up the grid. He did so very well in KA Junior, struggled a bit to kind of get further up the order in X30 Junior, but the speed's been there for the SCR Red Speeds here this weekend, proven obviously by Austin Garrison and Senior, but their juniors have been good too. But they've all been chasing the purple and pink machines. There have been Victor Day, Alan Carr, Turner Brown, Diego Ardiles. They have headlined this category through the 3 heat races so far. So everyone trying to hunt down the Rawlson Performance Group machines here in X30 Junior. Alexander Vanchev on that Sodi there, back of the frame, 3rd in line. New colors for him this weekend, and he was fast, especially got to show it in that 3rd and final heat race on the day. And that's the typical way that we see these weekends go. Sometimes someone might have a jump on the others to start, but by the time you get to Sunday, all those heat races in, you're around the fast drivers, you're learning, you're making adjustments, you're trying to, get your driving more dialed in, the chassis, the engine, and by the time we get to Sunday afternoon, the field's as close as ever. So here we go for another warm-up here from Trackhouse. As you saw on the grid, David Ramirez did go out with sticker MG red. So we still are seeing the wet patches through the bowl in turn 4, but obviously a handful of drivers believing that they're going to be able to learn enough on going on new rubber for that main event. So they're going to go out with sticker tires in the warm-up, but probably still in the minority camp going with sticker MG Res, whereas it looked like a lot more on scuffs.
Yeah, so a lot more drivers here on scuffs, but a long race for these drivers here. 22 laps total for these X30 juniors and for the majority of the junior classes and senior classes. The only drivers that have a little bit shorter main events are your Micro Swifts and Mini Swifts, since they lap a little bit longer. 20 laps for Mini Swift and Micro Swift, but when you get to the X30 Pro senior class, 24 laps, so double the length of what we saw yesterday throughout the heat races for most of these drivers as well. And just a little longer as Ty Fisher goes around there in one, I believe that looks like turn 9 there, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, turn 1. Wow. So those 2 drivers going around there in turn 1, and Ty Fisher and Fausto Arnaudo just still trying to tiptoe their way around the racetrack here at the moment. So those couple of drivers still working their way around here, but for Ty Fisher and Fausto Arnaudo going around in turn number 1. This driver on your screen, Jackson Wolney. It's been a little bit of an off weekend for him on the X30 side of things, but Max Weiland, wow.
Our lone interviewee from the morning, Max Weiland, going for a spin coming out of turn number 8. You see the wet patch there. He probably hit that, and look at the standing water and the mud right where the runoff and curbing ends. So if you drop a single tire there, you are going for a ride. We saw that in the heats yesterday. Aiden Rudolph and others going wide. I believe
Miguel Suarez and
Micro Swift went around there coming out of turn number 8. So that'll be a tough spot, because we saw more than I think any other race this year around the outside moves get stuck and work here at turn 8, turn 9, turn 11, turn 4. We saw a bunch, but you've got to make sure that you stay on the tarmac, because the moment you go into the grass here with how wet it is and all the rain we got last night, you're going backwards.
Yeah. How does that song go, Sander? Something around the outside, something like that, right?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
I'm definitely not the best singer, but I definitely gave it my best shot there. But yeah, we've seen a lot of moves around the outside this weekend. It's been, kind of cool to see, because you don't see that too often, right? Whenever you're either driver coaching or coaching up a younger driver, it's kind of not frowned upon to make a move around the outside, but you never recommend it, because, it has a low percentage, I guess, success rate. So it's just a little harder to make that move, but whenever you get it done, it's definitely a good feeling.
Turner Brown on screen here as he goes by Sarah Bradley, and yeah, it's a high-risk maneuver to go to the outside. You need to make sure that you basically get either even or nosing a little bit ahead, and you still probably got to give yourself an extra couple feet off the edge of the racetrack, because you know that guy on the inside doesn't want to get passed around the outside. He's going to try and muscle you a little bit wide, get you to make a mistake, hit the brakes, let off the gas, or drop a tire, and any of the three will break your momentum and fall back in line. So if you're going to go to the outside and you're going to try and hold it, you've got to stay well far along the passing driver, because the natural etiquette is if you're not at least even or very close to it, you're allowed to kind of move that guy a little bit to the edge of the racetrack and clear yourself. And we saw that many times yesterday where it got really tough. Especially it's tough as well, and it's almost a little bit different when you have a barrier there. It's one thing to kind of push a guy a little bit into the dirt or push him just into the runoff, but you don't want to barrier someone. You don't want to crash somebody. So, in turn 11, we saw drivers frantically, if they got passed in that last turn, trying to find a hole down to the inside, or again, crowd the inside driver, not in a dirty way by any means, but just to make sure they had enough space to continue and not end up in the fence. And sadly, a few, like we mentioned with Ben Gaunt, ended up feeling that out when it doesn't go right. Here's Ty Fisher on the Race Lab TV, our top qualifier in X30 Junior. He went backwards in the beginning couple heat races, seemed to find his mojo a little bit in that third one. And I don't think it was too much of a lack of speed. Maybe not great in the opening couple of laps, but the opening couple of laps don't matter as much for pace. It matters more of positioning. And there was one specific heat, I believe the first one, if not the second, where he lost 8 spots from turn 1 to turn number 3. And that alone, boom, you're backwards. And I like to compare it as an analogy to blood in the water. The sharks can tell and smell that if you see someone get passed in front of you, you're going to assume that guy is slower and you need to get around him, or he will be slow because he went offline from the natural racing groove, got dirt on the tires, and is going to have to go slow or maybe miss the apex in the next few corners. And then it just, it multiplies. You never get to clean the tires off if you keep getting passed and getting put to the outside, and it just gets worse and worse. Your tires get dirtier and dirtier. And in Ty's case, we saw a perfect example of that, where he got passed in turn number 1, then tried to get down, couldn't get down, turn 3 passed, and then went, took about a lap to kind of get back rolling again. And at that point, you've now lost maybe a second to 2 seconds, not to mention 8 to 10 positions. So hopefully today goes a little better for Ty, as we've got issues for the 744 of Edgar Rodriguez. That driver went out 12th in the lineup, and he is off on the inside of turn number 8. So not good for Edgar Rodriguez. We've got the lineup here looking here. Ty Fisher's going to roll off 6th today in the main event, so outside of row 3. And there's a little less pressure. Personally, the one thing I don't like about qualifying, too high up or as best as your pace goes, is that, you've really got to find more speed, because all you can do from that point is go backwards. And just when it comes down to, momentum or getting dirt on the tires or getting past or any which way, I'd rather be fighting a couple positions further back from where my overall speed is. So I'm always moving up the grid and gaining trust and momentum and faith from the drivers behind me that we're going to keep going forward. Whereas if you qualify maybe even a little better than what your natural speed should put you, maybe a toe lap or just got a bit lucky, or hit your marks there but you're not super consistent with it, again, you've got to clean that up real fast, because if not, when you get to that first tee, all the guys around you are going to be ready to go. Okay, I know that guy wasn't that fast in practice. I followed him, or I followed him around in qualifying, or I towed him in qualifying. I feel like I'm better than him. I'm going to dive bomb him as soon as I get the opportunity. Now, it's different though if you're the 419. Max Pappas qualifying on the pole, he's been the man to beat by a lot. The biggest margin of top positions of all 7 classes was in this one, KA100 Master. So yeah, if you're 2/10 clear of the field, you want to start ahead of them all. You want to just drive away. You're better. You know your speed's better, and your top qualifying effort puts you right on the point, and you can just start hitting your marks and drive away. You don't have to pass anyone else. So if you got that kind of confidence, that kind of speed, yeah, you want to do that. Now this doesn't help your confidence. Laurentiu Martin going around there out of the pit lane,
and that's our pole sitter for later today here. Max Pappas actually starting on the outside for the first time here this weekend after not going out for warm up, and then wasn't able to go out for the first heat race yesterday in the morning. So Pappas starting on the back foot here, but not too far back, still on the front row alongside Laurentiu Martin. There's Max Pappas on your screen. Martin Stone as well, starting P3 after a pretty consistent day yesterday. Ryan Kasner starting P5. It's an all Carapolati 6 and 7, and then Andre Isaac P8 in this KA100 Masters class. But like I said yesterday, just for Max Pappas, a leisurely Saturday drive in heats number 2 and 3. So he had a really good pace. Questions were was he going to have the same pace that he had over a single lap in qualifying? And he really did across the heat races and did a good job all day yesterday to keep Laurencio Mardan and Martin Stone at bay, who have just been, lacking a little bit of pace compared to Max Pappas, who has a lot of experience and a lot of laps around this racetrack. So he knows how to get around here, knows how the conditions work, and he has a son who's driving this weekend as well, who's also wrenching for. So pretty cool to see this father-son duo here driving this weekend. But yeah, Laurencio Mardan, the driver starting on the pole position, and for whenever you start out around the outside here, or on the outside, going into turn number 1 throughout every single race, it's just a lot more difficult, right? You're a lot closer to the barrier, you're a lot closer to the runoff, so just going to be something to watch later on today.
Well, let's take a look at the times here. We'll pull the leaderboard up on the left-hand side of the screen so you guys can see how the lap times look. Max Pappas a lot in front of the field right now at a 53.17. Keeping an eye on the action right now is Hoach Driver Development's own Nick Terlecki. Nick, you had a scary, scary moment at the end of the day yesterday. First and foremost, are you okay? Are you feeling it here this morning? Because it's good to see you.
Yeah, thanks, Sander. Yeah, I'm feeling it just a little bit, but we're all good.
So talk me through the rest of your weekend here. When we ended happy hour and even through qualifying, it looked like you and Josh were kind of knocking on the door of the leader's pace, maybe a tenth or two off. But, how's the weekend progression been for you outside of course, that scary moment in Heat 3?
Just a bit of bad track positioning in happy hour that led to, starting pole in the slow group for qualifying. So didn't really have anyone to chase down. And then just a matter of fact of other drivers between all the heat races and, kind of a lot of things out of my control, really. So, I start 16th in the final, but I know earlier in the heats I was able to get up there within the first opening lap. So, if everyone's aggression is how it's been, then I shouldn't see a problem with me being in the front.
Yeah, that's a big talking point, right? The aggression level has been super high. You've spent most of your senior career running in the 100cc ranks, and last year you moved up to the 125 to get away, I imagine, a little bit of the craziness. And then, we go to this weekend, and it looks like another Super Speedway pack race. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Well, Nick, we're going to let you go ahead and get back to suiting up here for X30 Pro warm-up. Wish you best of luck there from 16th on the grid. We've seen plenty of guys come from further back to make something happen.
Thanks, Xander.
All right, again, that's Nick Terlecki here, folks. The Hoach Driver Development Tony Kart driver rolls off, as he mentioned, 16th in the main, but part of that is, again, because of that nasty crash in heat number 3. So hopefully he can use that extra speed that's better than a P16 in the field to drive up the order.
Yeah, and I'm really, wondering what suit he's going to wear today, because during that crash yesterday, I actually ripped the entire zipper of his suit, and he was telling me it was just a parachute hanging on him on the exit of turn number 1. So interesting to see what Nick Terlecki's going to wear here this weekend. If he has another Hoach Driver Development suit in stock here that he can wear for the main events later on today. But as expected so far in this morning warm-up session, Max Pappas quickest in this KA100 Masters class, 51.294, and the driver there on your screen, Laurencio Mardan. We saw him go around earlier in turn number 1. He's currently sits 4th with Coelho 2nd. We saw him have a lot of pace yesterday, but just kind of fell off across the long run, and it's a much, much longer main event today. So, stamina going to be one thing here today, as well as hitting your marks and consistency.
Now, while the session draws to a close, down on the grid, Hayden Jones is one driver we have not chatted with yet this weekend. But one that is the reigning race winner. Hayden won here a year ago and in a massive battle with Austin Garrison, Ryan Norberg, and Checo Ernesto Rivera in a 4-car pack with a fantastic move up the hill to turn number 3. He's won at this track multiple times on the national stage. He knows how to get around here really well. It's his home racetrack, and for the limited starts that he's had in 2024, he's been pretty much good everywhere. He will podium at the SCUSA Pro Tour, and then running this weekend here for the US Pro Kart Series. He was fast in the practice sessions, but struggled in qualifying. the whole team faded a little bit. Norberg was in the top 3. He ended up 4th. Hayden was in the top 5, ended up in 11th. So in the heat there, especially the last heat on the day, we saw Hayden getting going and really making up some ground. In all 3 heats, he's had consistent runs by just staying out of trouble and not having anything else go wrong. He'll safely start inside the top 10 here for today's main event. And I'm curious, again, where they feel their balance of the car is, because it looked like in the last heat that the purple and pink machines really got rolling good. Ryan Norberg, even though he got spun around at the beginning of the session, was running the fastest lap times of the race as he was clawing his way back up the pack. The downside for the number 1 plate is that spin in turn number 1 put him so far back from everybody else. And unlike the first heat race that had a lot of defensive driving, a lot of low lining and battling, there was a little bit of that in heat number 3, but not nearly enough to slow the leaders down and back them up to him. Now, in a long race, you can start further back, you can have mistakes and still drive forward. But in those shorter heats, it's tougher. Now, on the flip side, you have our top qualifier from yesterday, Austin Garrison, in the Speed Concepts Racing Red Speed. We chatted with him multiple times throughout the day. The fun part there at the end of the day was mentioning to him that, he felt a little bit slighted that we didn't put him on the promotional poster for the X30 Pro category this weekend. Yes, Ryan Norberg's the reigning champ and most recent race winner. And yes, Joe Turney was the winningest driver in 2024 and is returning this weekend. But Austin Garrison was second in Houston. He's won multiple times last year, and he's leading us to green when we go out for their main event this afternoon after a great run in Heat 1, Heat 2. He went 1-1-2 in the heats. And again, in that one heat race, he finished second. He was tracking down JT at the very end. Harley Keeble, much like Norberg, didn't get the best run of it all through the heat races. You can see sticker MG yellows for both the number 1 machine and the 365 of Harley Keeble. So they're obviously going to try to get a read for the package on new rubber. It looks like the same for Hayden Jones there on the inside. Harley Keeble had to go to a backup frame after a nasty crash in that in one of the heat races, and then as well in that last heat race on the day, also a DNF. He'll start deep in the field, and joking with him yesterday at the end of the day that, the last time we were at a pack race X30 event, it was on the regular season. It was the US Pro Kart Series in Cincinnati, and that's where Harley Keeble got his first career U.S. national win in the pro category. So he's like, if I can get up there, yeah, I think I might be able to do it. But at the same time, this track, with some of the over-under opportunities, is one of his teammates, Andres Murcia, who was the other driver involved in that scary crash. That we've seen plenty of around the outside moves stick. We've also seen a lot of over-under crossover maneuvers stick as well. So being able to just park the bus on the white line for all 20-plus laps, that is probably not going to be a realistic strategy that could work to win the race. We even saw Dalton Haynes surprise Austin Garrison in one of the opening heat races by catching him off in turn number 6 to get by, and Garrison was doing a fantastic job of parking into the opening few laps until his kart came to him. So I don't think we'll see a complete defensive driving masterclass today, but there definitely will be some, because when they're this close together, track position's key, and you can't afford to leave the door open when everyone's the same speed and you go back a few spots, because if they don't battle again, you're not going to make much more headway forward. Now, for Dalton Haynes, he was on the other end of it. He did a bit of defending himself, but he also had some aggressive moves, and he admitted in his interview yesterday that he regretted the maneuver that kind of took him and Joe Turney out of the top 2 spots in heat number 3. Luckily, both of them still managed to finish in the top 5, and he'll start very safe here. But it was another bit of learning for Dalton. He's entering now his third, or really 4th season, but all partial schedules in the X30 Pro category, but his 4th year, dating back to 2021 when he made his senior debut at the Grand National Championship. That, yes, you have to be aggressive in this class. Yes, you need to be on your marks, but there's a time and a place for everything. And sometimes those heats aren't the place to lay it all on the line for the race win. Hayden Jones, again, like we mentioned on the grid, he was consistent. Did everything that was asked of him after an 11th place quali effort. Just pick up a few spots. If you go forward in every heat, or at least you stay the same position-wise, but other drivers around you have bad luck or troubles, you're going to start okay. As we saw Min Nang Zhu off the racetrack there in the LN kart, the 367 off to the side, entering turn number 9. Now let's take a look at JT here. Joe Turney, he This is his first race back stateside after a scary, scary injury at the FIA World Championships last year with a broken ankle. He was slated to continue his U.S. debut season and was probably going to be one of the favorites going into Las Vegas for the SCUSA Super Nationals, but had to go on the mend, had to go through a couple surgeries, physical therapy, and already got his mojo back with a win over in Europe as he spent the first 2 months of his driving recovery process over there. This is his first race back here. We're hoping to get to see Joe at a few more races later this year as well. Of course, ending off with the Supernats in Vegas. I think that one's pretty much a lock as it falls well outside the international calendar for him. But hopefully we get to see him a lot more, and he's definitely right back onto form of where he was a year ago, winning a heat race yesterday, being in the mix of things, and battling for the top spot. Here's once again Harley Keeble on the Sodi. Right now, Harley is 8th, but about a half second off of Ryan Norberg, who's fastest. And again, both of those drivers on sticker MG yellows.
Yeah, so both of those tires lapping pretty quickly here. And Joe Turney, the driver's on your screen earlier, starting on the front row alongside Austin Garrison. Here's Brandon Carr, who's been pretty quick all weekend long, as well as Aiden Levy, but just finding themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time for Aiden Levy. Was off the racetrack in a couple of sessions in his Chad Dawkins Racing Kart Republic and his X30 Pro debut here this weekend. Not too bad. He's been a top 10 driver all weekend long, but just kind of been struggling to find that last little bit to get up there and fight in between the top 5. And it's just the growing pains of moving up a couple of CCs across senior categories. And you have Brandon Carr, where his countryman came back and learned a lot so far this weekend. Has had the pace. The story at round 1 in Houston, it was that they found the pace just a little bit too late, and he couldn't really race his way up. And the month of April, was one to forget for him. Spun around at the Star Championship Series on the opening lap, where he was one of the favorites, being the reigning champion there. And this weekend as well, we're expecting good things from him this weekend. Being a North Carolina, I guess, adopted son. But Brandon Carr, has done a good job this weekend, but just also finding that last little bit to race his way up and fight for the lead.
You saw him pushing there. He kicked up a big spray of water over in turn number 7, and you see him checking at the right rear tire twice now here in the last couple corners. That was because of he felt that little off and knew that the grip was down a bit. So that was not a good lap for Brandon Carr. He's down in 14th. Now Brandon Lemke, the Franklin Motorsports Merlin driver, another veteran here as he returns back to the X30 Pro class, that he is one of just 3 US Pro Kart Series champions in the last decade. He joins the likes of Brandon Jarsakrak, who won the title 4 times in a row, and then of course Ryan Norberg, who has won it in the last 3 seasons. Brandon spent many years in the 100cc ranks. We've talked about him a lot yesterday, and in chatting a bit with his team owner, Jamie Saraki with Franklin Motorsports, that, they're used to, back when he was 15 years old and he won in his rookie season, they were so afraid to change the go-kart because every session he was perfect. But, now he's a different driver. And so and also the field has changed. There are many more drivers that have stepped up their game, are all on good equipment, are all driving more frequently, and are on top of their game. So that little extra of adjustment to find more speed that in the past you didn't need to make because you were clear of the field, now you have to make. And in just 2 weekends, he's already made a big leap forward. In Houston, he was kind of around that 8th to 10th place bubble. This weekend, qualified 5th, ran inside the top group. Didn't have the best of luck through all of the heats, but he did finish them all. And he obviously had a good warm-up right there. P4. Ryan Norberg falls down to P5 at the end. And Joe Turney, fastest out of 47.473. Hayden Jones, 2nd. Harley Keeble, quick at the end, 3rd. And we're almost dry now, at least for the racing groove, because that puts us only 0.2 off of Dalton Haynes' time that provisionally went to the top in qualifying at a 47.18 or 1.3. So just a couple tenths off of where the times were. I'm sure the grip levels are still substantially lower than where they were on Friday afternoon, but we're getting back to what we're used to seeing. Down to the end of the field there, Aiden Levy ends up 17th, right behind Santi Fernandez in 16th, Brian Garcia in 18th, Chris Harrower, Christian Blevins, Austin Perrin, Andres Ardiles, Ming Nanzu, and Andres Murcia in 24th, which means I believe we may have had one driver that either didn't have a transponder pickup or didn't go out for the warm-up session in X30 Pro. But it's time for B-Main action here from the US Pro Kart Series. We're going to switch over to the KC Premium member stream to be able to watch the last chance qualifier and then the main events. So if you want to watch this again, folks, just let the YouTube website take you right over to the next stream. If not, you'll be able to see the full replays posted later on next week for free.